Half a Riddle. Chapter 25. That evening, at precisely 10:01, SQ Pedalian knocked on the boy's door. He knocked first with his feet, by accident, and then with his knuckles. Getting no response, he opened the door and peered in. In the dim room he saw the boys lying on their bunks in their pajamas. Something caught his eye, however, and he looked upward. Only shadows on the ceiling. SQ? Is that you? Reynie asked in a sleepy voice. Sorry, boys, SQ said, snapping on the light. I didn't think you'd be asleep so early, it's only just now lights out. Mr. Curtin wants to see you. Hop up now, both of you, and get dressed. You know, I could have sworn I saw one of your ceiling tiles move. Probably just a shadow, Reynie suggested, fumbling with his trousers and shoes. Or a mouse, said Sticky in a cracked voice. His mouth had gone very dry. SQ scratched his head. A mouse, HM? That's probably it. A lot of students have complained about mice in their ceiling lately. I suppose we'll have to put out some traps. As Reynie made a mental note to tell Kate to look out for mousetraps, SQ ushered them from their room. Both boys were in a state of high alarm. Obviously, Martina had convinced Mr. Curtin she hadn't cheated, for how else would she have been made an executive? Thus Mr. Curtin must know that Sticky lied, and no doubt Reynie had been implicated as his accomplice. Which was as it should be, Reynie thought miserably. It was his plan that got Sticky into this mess, twice. At the entrance to the Institute Control Building, SQ stopped. With a sympathetic expression, he knelt down and put a hand on each of their shoulders. I imagine you two are wondering what Mr. Curtin wants to speak with you about. Oh, yes, cried the boys together, and Reynie's heart leaped. If he had a moment to prepare, maybe he could think of something to say, something that. I wish I knew, SQ said, shaking his head. I hope it's nothing bad. 60 seconds later the boys were alone with Mr. Curtin in his office. Trying to breathe evenly, and mostly failing, they waited for him to speak. Mr. Curtin had put down his journal and rolled out from behind his desk. But instead of his usual zooming about, he was inching toward them, very, very slowly, contemplating the boys in a way that gave them the impression of a predator. A wolf spider came to mind, seeking just the moment to pounce upon its prey. They had to fight the urge to recoil. No doubt, said Mr. Curtin as he drew near, you're wondering why Martina Crowe was made executive. After all, according to you, George, she was a bully and a cheat. Isn't that right? Sticky reached for his spectacles, checked himself, and thrust his hands into his pockets to still them. Yes, sir. It's true, Mr. Curtin, said Reynie. We were wondering that. Yes. I know. And now I shall tell you why. Do you remember what you said to me the other day, Reynard, when we discussed Miss Contraire? You said the best way of dealing with those you don't trust is to keep them close. I agreed with you then, and I agree with you now. Of course, had Martina Crowe not been such an excellent candidate for executive, I would have sent her packing at once. But she has always been useful, and as I told George, the cheating itself doesn't trouble me, so long as I understand the situation. At any rate, the situation has been rectified. Miss Crowe and I had a brief discussion of the matter. She denied the cheating, I might add, and ultimately she was promoted. Everything is settled. Everything, that is, except for your situation, Mr. Curtin went on. Which is why I have sent for you. Our situation, said Reynie. He could hear Sticky trying to swallow. Indeed, said Mr. Curtin. For as of this moment, you are both made messengers. The boys were stunned. Here they'd been afraid something terrible was in store for them. Instead, their mission had leaped forward. Messengers at last. Their faces broke into huge grins. Oh, thank you. Sticky cried, hoping he sounded more grateful than relieved. We won't disappoint you, said Reynie. I should hope not, said Mr. Curtin. I have 2 new messenger slots to fill, and as a matter of urgency, I am promoting you a day earlier than planned. Here are your new uniforms. Returning to his desk, Mr. Curtin produced 2 white tunics, 2 pale blue sashes, and 2 pairs of striped trousers. Wear them with pride. And then, who knows? One day you may forego those striped pants for solid blue ones, just as Martina Crowe did today. When SQ had finally left off slapping the boys on the backs in painful congratulation and lumbered away down the corridor, Reynie and Sticky exchanged relieved glances and closed their bedroom door behind them. The door's closing revealed the silhouette of Kate Wetherall pressed flat against the wall behind it. She switched on her flashlight and whispered, in an exasperated tone, "You didn't even knock." "It's our own room," Sticky replied. "I'm surprised you didn't hear us in the corridor," Reynie said. "SQ was patting us on the backs so hard my teeth were clacking together." "To tell the truth," Kate said sheepishly, "I was asleep until I heard the doorknob turn. I only had time to leap across the room and hide." She jerked her thumb toward the lower bunk, where Sticky's covers and pillows were in lumpy disarray. "And first I had to throw the covers over Constance. You were gone so long, she fell asleep on Sticky's bed. I meant to keep guard, but I guess I nodded off." "Some guard," said a groggy voice from beneath the covers. "Anyway," Sticky said, "we're glad you're here. We have some news." He and Reynie held up their new uniforms. "Messengers!" Kate exclaimed. "I can't believe it. And here we were worried you'd gotten in big trouble." Constance sat up, rubbed her eyes, and squinted at the uniforms. "Oh, yes," Reynie said with a laugh. "So worried that you both fell asleep." Kate gave him a disapproving look. "We were worried," she insisted. "And I'm sure Mr. Benedict is, too. We told him you'd been called to see Mr. Curtin. We should let him know the good news right away." "You sent a report?" Sticky asked, surprised. "Took us forever," Constance said, stretching. "Morse code's a little rusty." Rusty was not exactly the word for Constance's Morse code, but the boys resisted comment. They were both glad to hear a report had been sent. They'd been unable to send one the night before. A night crew of helpers had been working on the plaza, filling cracks and replacing broken stones. Sticky climbed onto the television, made sure the coast was clear, and began flashing a message. "Our special privileges begin tomorrow," Reynie told the girls. That's all he told us. "Nervous?" Kate asked. "What do you think?" Reynie said. "I feel like I swallowed a beehive." "Here comes a response," Sticky said from the window. "Glad ou proud, now pay attention." "Sounds like he's about to tell us something important," Reynie said. He went over and peered out the window with Sticky. Sure enough, the light in the woods continued flashing its coded message. "With open eyes now you may find a place you must exit to enter. Where one?" "Where one what?" Sticky said, when the message broke off and didn't resume. "Why did they stop?" Reynie groaned. "It's Mr. Curtin," he said, pointing. "He's going out onto the plaza." "Now?" Sticky hissed, watching the familiar figure rolling into view below. In the middle of the message? He couldn't have waited 20 more seconds? "At least we have a start," Reynie said. But a start was all they had, for even after a long discussion, the children were left stymied. The last, unfinished line gave no clue at all, and the first seemed pointless, as it hardly seemed necessary to tell them they needed to keep their eyes open. Which left only the middle line, and that one utterly baffled them. How on earth could you enter a place by exiting it? "We'll have to try again tomorrow," Kate said finally, stifling a yawn. "I can't think straight anymore tonight." "At least you boys made messenger." "That's an encouraging development." The others agreed, the meeting adjourned, and in a few minutes the girls had disappeared into the ceiling and the boys had gone to bed. Reynie had just begun to compose a mental letter to Miss Paramall when Sticky whispered into the darkness. "Reynie, you awake?" "Wide awake," Reynie replied. I wanted to ask you, does this encouraging development scare the wits out of you as much as it does me? Reynie laughed. It may be the worst encouraging development I've ever experienced. In the bunk below, Sticky laughed, too. Their laughter relaxed them the tiniest bit, and that was all it took. In moments their exhaustion overcame them, and both boys fell asleep.